let me shift here, and I just want to talk a little bit about silence. Silence, my sisters and brothers, has many dimensions. There is a sacred silence, which is that silence out of which creative contemplation grows. It's a meditation on the word and the will of God. It's the silence out of which we meditate and get closer to God. It's the silence in which fervent prayer is born. There is a sacred silence. But then there's a seething silence that comes when you are quiet externally, but you've got a storm going on the inside. The late Dr. Howard Thurman called that a noisy quietness. But then finally, and here's the silence I want to get to, there is a sinful silence. And Adam's silence falls into this category because a sinful silence is a silence that comes over you when you ought to say something, but you don't say nothing at all. It is that silence that creeps in when you ought to speak up for God, but you sit there acting like you don't know what God said. My sisters and brothers, I fear that Adam was not only silent on that fateful day in the garden when a serpent showed up, but Adam has remained silent through the centuries. When Africans were captured and taken from their homeland, packed in the hulls of ships, sold on auction blocks, beat and killed and misused and kept in shadow slavery, Adam was silent. When Jews were persecuted, deported, and murdered by Nazis, Adam was silent. When Native Americans were slaughtered in the acts of genocide so their land could be taken from them, Adam was silent. When our ancestors were lynched and called boy and girl, even though they were full grown, when they were denied employment and equal access to resources, Adam was silent. And today, far too often, when our boys are shooting and killing each other on the streets, and our girls suffer from low self-esteem and give birth to children whose daddies won't stay around to take care of them, Adam is still silent. Sisters and brothers, there is a sinful silence among us when injustice is raging and we remain quiet. When people are aching, when people are hurting, when babies are crying and dying of hunger and not having enough love from insufficient care, and we remain silent, that is a sinful silence. When the church looks and sees what's going on in its communities, and not just in its communities, but what's going on right there in the household of faith, and we sit there and act like we don't know what's going on, that is a sinful silence. And let me suggest that there's a time when silence is sinful. And here in the text, we see a snake talking to Adam's wife. Adam remains silent. Adam should have said something. My sisters and brothers, the nation is waiting for somebody to say something. Go on, touch your neighbor and tell them you ought to say something. You see them boys on the corner, you ought to say something. You see what's happening with those sisters. I'm not talking about Pookie and Ray Ray and them. I'm talking about the saints' children. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here today. You ought to say something. The classroom is waiting for somebody to say something. Youth violence is waiting for somebody to say something. Every community, every city, every town, every home, every boy, every girl, every family is waiting for the church to break the silence. And if we don't break the silence, let me tell you what's going to happen. If we don't break the silence, we end up embracing the appeals of the serpent. What are the appeals of the serpent?
Sean Bell, say his name. Sean Bell, won't you say his name? Say his name.
90.7 WTCC. Good morning and welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness, create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. It is now 2 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And I want to thank Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up into the 9 o'clock hour with The Promise. You can hear The Promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best in gospel music. Good way to start out your Monday morning. Great way to start out your week. And it's been some more voter suppression this week, you know. Seems like that's the order of the day, is that as we round the bend with candidates declaring and trying to get in on the 2022 midterm elections, that the white supremacists are hell-bent on making sure black folks, it is difficult as it can be for black folks to be able to vote. Yeah, that's what's happening. Also, the National NAACP convention, the 112th convention, is taking place on this week. Started last week. The official opening was yesterday. Had a worship service, a gospel concert. The opening session heard from the board chair, Mr. Leon Russell, the president and CEO, Derek Johnson, and it continues on today. So go to naacp.org, check out the convention schedule. Registered delegates, you already have the information. Those who are not registered delegates, there are sessions that you can participate in, as it is a virtual convention. So you can definitely partake, and you can go back and watch the videos of the sessions that have already taken place. I want to shout out the Reverend Dr. Gina Stewart, the chair of the Religious Affairs Committee for the National NAACP. Her committee selected me to speak for the Sunday morning worship service and streamed our live service from Spring of Hope Church into the convention, and that was a signal honor. I want to thank Reverend Stewart, her committee, the entire board, Reverend Derek Johnson, Leon Russell, and all of my fellow NAACP peers for giving me that honor. Also for those who showed up in the sanctuary at the Spring of Hope Church on yesterday. Special shout out goes to my colleague in the struggle, my sister, Attorney Tanisha Sullivan, the president of the Boston branch of the NAACP, and all of you who participated. Definitely my Spring of Hope Church family, First Lady Cynthia Swan, and the entire Spring of Hope family. Also, my jurisdictional supervisor, Mother Valerie, was in town this past weekend for an event that the Women's Department was putting on, and was there in service yesterday. So it was an honor to have her as well. 413-337-1867. Once again, 413-337-1867 when we open up the telephone lines for you to call in. We're going to be talking about this voter suppression, suppressing black votes. That's what we're talking about today. Tell a friend, tell somebody. The bishop is on the air right now. Those of you who are on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, wherever you are, please like, subscribe, share. If you haven't shared, do that right now. Share it on your timeline. Share it with your friends. Share it with your groups. Let them know we're on the air and we're talking about some things this morning that you don't want to miss, okay? Don't you go nowhere. Stay right with us. Of course, you know, I'm going to play my son, T. Swan, It's kind of become kind of his staple on this show. His song "Made Me," but I also want to play a little bit of my big sis Rhonda Swan as well. So right after spoken word piece, we're coming right back with you. Don't y'all go nowhere, okay? We'll be right back.
Strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain, had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from and hit, but it just made me stronger and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above their nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me, he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
Is for all the brothers that passed, but more particularly one because it affected me drastically. I remember my sister gave me the call and I was in awe. Matter of fact, it felt the farthest from reality. She seen somebody post RIP with his name and I said I doubt it's the same friend I had since the 7th grade. She said I'ma call his sister and double check and called me back. Said he hanged himself in his room and had been there for days. Initially it didn't hit me, then it clicked and I remembered that I hadn't seen or heard from the homie all week. Wish she had told me what had him feeling lonely and weak. I guess everybody got demons we don't even speak of, cause I was with him exactly a week before the call. Just under 20, he couldn't even purchase alcohol. My best friend for like 6 or 7 years. I'm not ashamed to say I shedded plenty tears, but it was hard. He was somebody I had plenty memories with. The first person I ever burned any trees with. The worst feeling is knowing that you would leave us in all this grievance without a reason. One of the first people to ever believe in me. When it came down to it, you knew you could call me if you needed me. Cause that information I wouldn't have ever imagined. It's sad thinking about it. I ain't happy that it happened, but it made me. There was plenty times when I thought that it would drive me crazy, but looking back on it now I see all the drive that it gave me. I learned more about why I am who I am on the daily. I know it may sound crazy, but I'm glad that it made me. Yeah, was born the son of a pastor, he was who I was named after. Matter of fact, I even got some of his characteristics. Both of us got messages for the people. I just do mine with rhythm on beat, he do his on the pulpit with scriptures. Well connected, respected in the community. Ever since I was little, I felt like there was some pressure on me. It started off with little stuff like when my folk brought us to church and then they forced us to get up and say a testimony. Getting older, had to watch how I acted in public, cause people wouldn't hesitate to put that in discussion. Chatting like, isn't that the pastor's kid? I'm like, yeah, that's me, but please don't expect me to be exactly like my daddy. Don't discredit my family for how I am. I'm not a little kid no more, I'm now a man. And I ain't pointing fingers, I'm not trying to do no blaming at all. When it comes to how I came up, I wouldn't change it at all, because it made me. There was plenty times when I thought that it would drive me crazy, but looking back on it now I see all the drive that it gave me. Yeah, glad that it made me. Yeah, glad that it made me. Looking back on it now, I see all the pride that it gave me. So glad that it made me. Yeah, it made me. Yeah, it made me.
90.7 WTCC. That was T Swan. Once again, y'all need to really go check his music out, okay? Just need to do that. T_SWAN. You can check him out on anywhere you stream music, all of those places. Spotify, Pandora, Google, you name it. He's in there, and y'all need to be there, okay? Y'all need to be there. Now listen, do me a favor once again. Tell a friend, tell somebody. Bishop is on the air. Like, subscribe, share with your following, with your constituents. I'm sharing it now. Let me see. I need to get the gram on me. So let me tell you, I am on vacation right now. So I'm not in my man cave, my makeshift studio at home that I've been broadcasting from for the last year because of COVID. I'm sitting in a room on Martha's Vineyard with another makeshift studio, but hey, we make do with what we have. We are live right now, so I'm not able to get on the gram. I don't have all the equipment I have. I got enough, so I'm live with you all. I got you on YouTube, I got you on Facebook, I got you on WTCC, 4,000 watts here, Western Mass, Connecticut, Vermont, throughout the Pioneer Valley. So I'm just letting my followers on the gram know that I am live on the radio right now, and all they need to do is swipe up and they can get in here with me. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867 is the number here. Matter of fact, let me get that up here. Get that number up here, so you can still chime in on the conversation. You can still call the bishop right now. We're talking about today these voter suppression efforts that are happening all over the nation. They don't want you to be able to vote. Let me tell you something. You guys messed them up. Okay? Y'all messed them up. In this 2020 election, they didn't expect you chocolate-covered folk to come out and vote in the numbers that you voted in. They didn't expect it to happen. And what you did, you flipped states that had historically gone Republican. You flipped states that Donald Trump won in the 2016 election. They were not expecting that. Okay? Y'all flipped Georgia from red to blue. You flipped Georgia because black folk in Atlanta, in that area, DeKalb County, came out and voted and flipped the state. Y'all flipped Wisconsin, a Republican stronghold, because black folk in Milwaukee, another chocolate city, came out to vote. Y'all flipped Michigan, okay? Because black folk in chocolate city of Detroit, a black city. Y'all remember, you remember the movie, because I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blackity black, and I'm black. Yeah, that's Detroit. Okay, Detroit is blackity black. All right, and y'all flipped Michigan. Then y'all had the nerve to flip Pennsylvania, because black folk in Philadelphia came out in droves to vote, and y'all flipped Pennsylvania. Okay, And then way over, it wasn't black folk who did this, but they flipped Arizona. So, you know, they looked at the demographics of this election. They looked at you all flipping those red states blue, mainly on the backs of black voters. They looked at you all winning 2 Senate seats in Georgia, not only flipping the state, but winning 2 Senate seats in Georgia and putting a black man in the Senate, the Reverend Raphael Warnock, for the first time in the history of Georgia. And they said, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. What we's gonna do is we gonna make sure these niggers don't do this no more. Okay? We're going to make sure that it is as difficult as it possibly can be for them to be able to vote. And Republican-controlled legislatures all over the nation, 47 states, Republicans have filed bills to try to make it more difficult to vote. They don't want to, check it, they don't want to get their message out there. They're not trying to have their message resonate with y'all. They're not trying to win you over. They're not trying to prove to you, you know, that we're the better option in terms of voting. What they're basically doing is saying, we're just going to stop y'all from voting. You know, we're not going to change. We're not going to change anything about our platform. And we're not going to change our agenda. We're not going to change our racist ways. We're just going to stop you N-words from voting altogether. That's the strategy, y'all. That is the 2022 strategy, is to stop black folk from voting. Okay? 413-337-1867. Good morning, Keyshawn. Let me see who we got in there. Are y'all repping your city and your town? Y'all let me know where you're coming in from. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're coming in from. Fred Shelton, good morning. Carol Washington. Stephanie Johnson, good morning. Good morning. Brother Hampton, good morning, all the way from LA in the house. Good morning, Chris from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He's up in here. My frat brother Sean, Iota Sean, is over on the Twitter Periscope side. Ow, frat. Good morning to you. Good morning, Kathy Swanson. Good morning, Michael Moore, avid listener, one of my top fans. Good morning to you, sir. Peace to you, Brother Stokes. Good morning. I see you, Aunt Marion. Good morning. I see you all the way from the Shy, Cousin Lisa. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everybody who is chiming in on the conversation today. Juanita, I see you this morning. If all of you who are not on the internet, you can feel free to call 413-337-1867. Once again, that's 413-337-1867. Now, some of these laws are so egregious. So egregious. The one they passed in Georgia was just insane. I mean, they're going to cut out certain voting days. There will be no Sunday voting. And you know why? There will be no Sunday voting? There will be no Sunday voting because it's black folk who go to the souls to the polls, who go vote on Sunday. We're the ones who take our church members out to vote on Sunday. So they say, you know what? We just gonna get rid of Sunday voting. White folks going fishing, bungee jumping, hiking, snake hunting, alligator wrestling, whatever the heck it is that they do. That's what they're doing on Sunday. We going to church and we taking our members, to the polls after church. So they said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to cut out Sunday voting altogether. That way, majority of the people that are hurt by that are black people. Okay? We're going to close ballot boxes after a certain time. Even though the ballot boxes may be outside of a building where people should be able to just drop ballots off, we're going to close that down at a certain time. Because people who get off work at 5 won't be able to get there and drop their ballot off. You see? I mean, it's just all kinds of crazy stuff that they're doing just to target the voting practices of black people. I mean, that's real. That's exactly what they're doing. They're targeting the voting practices of black people. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Good morning, caller. Going once, caller. Going twice. And we're gone. All right, 413-337-1867. Patience is the order of the day, and I'll get you definitely on the air, okay? I'll get you on the air. We'll make it happen. 413-337-1867. And so Georgia just went buck wild. Not only did they put all kinds of restrictive things in, I mean, they went so far as to say, you know what, guess what? If there are long voting lines, y'all can't go and give the people waiting in line food and water. So I don't really care if it's your 78-year-old mother or grandmother who's standing in line for 3 hours and, her sugar is acting up. You can't go give her nothing. You can't give her medicine. You can't give her any food. You can't give her any water. That's illegal. Now, what the hamburger that has to do with voting? Who knows? It's insane. It's pure insanity. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Good. Good day to be a duck.
Good day to be who?
A duck.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Your conversation about the voting. And didn't the 1965 Voting Act allow us the right to vote, not the ability to vote, right?
Well, it basically it protected our right to vote, and it also, what the 65 Voting Rights Act also did, it identified those states, those counties, those precincts, those regions that had historically suppressed black votes. And it put them on pre-clearance, which basically meant if your state, like Georgia was one of those states that had to get pre-clearance. And so before Georgia could pass a voting law, move a precinct, a poll, shut down hours, they would have to get it cleared by the Department of Justice. And if they didn't, the DOJ could come in and stop it. What happened was in 2013, when 35 Republican attorneys generals from across the nation filed a lawsuit saying that the Voting Rights Act was unconstitutional, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't decide it was unconstitutional, but they did say that the formula in Section 4 that was used to determine who needed pre-clearance was antiquated, and they threw it out. So when they threw the formula out, all of those states, all of those precincts, all of those districts no longer needed to get pre-clearance, which now made Section 5, the enforcement, the ability for the DOJ to go in and say you can't do that. It neutered that. So right now they can pass whatever law and rules they want, and it has to go all the way to court, because right now, even though it's still on the books, the Voting Rights Act is unenforceable.
But some of the suppression strategies, like early voting, absentee voting, voter registration, aren't some of those states who've been doing that for years, right?
Yes.
Now they adopted that now. I think it's like 17 states.
There have been over 40 states that have filed bills. There have been about 20 some odd states that have passed voter suppression bills.
And two more things I was
yeah.
before I hang up.
Mm-hmm.
The HR 1, isn't that the people act to expand the ballot box? And HR 4, the John Lewis, can you elaborate on those two?
Yeah, basically the For the People Act, the John Lewis Act really is trying to restore the Voting Rights Act. Yeah, to restore. Like I said, like right now it's unenforceable. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Act was basically to restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act back to its previous authority. And still, of course, they blocked the For the People Act. It couldn't get through the Senate, and we knew that would happen. My problem, even though all 50 Democrats voted for it, my problem is they're not raising enough sand about this stuff. All this craziness that Joe Manchin and other Democrats are doing, Joe Biden ought to be holding Joe Manchin accountable. But they're scared to offend him because then maybe he won't vote along with us on some other stuff. Well, if he's acting like a Republican and voting with the Republicans, the hell with trying to kowtow to him. Well, I mean, who's running the country, Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
That's good point. Well, you know who he's working for, that senator there in West Virginia.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, good topic, and I just get perplexed sometimes about the right to vote versus the ability to vote.
Absolutely.
I thought we had a right to vote. There should be no problem. Vote, but now we're going backwards now.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, appreciate your call.
Okay.
413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. So not only did you have the craziness in Georgia, but then you also had the craziness in Arizona. Okay? Georgia was passing very restrictive laws, and Arizona passed a bunch of restrictions. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld Arizona's restrictions and basically gutted most of what remained of the landmark Voting Rights Act. It left some protections like redistricting in place, but it's matter of fact, the Church of God in Christ Department of Social Justice, we are doing a white paper on the danger of this Supreme Court decision. It was a 6-3 vote, and you know that the Supreme Court is majority 6-3 court now, which was also one of the reasons why it was important that Donald Trump not be reelected, because he could have had the opportunity to appoint another person to the Supreme Court, and they would have had a 7-2 majority that probably we'd still be dealing with the ramifications through the lives of my great-grandchildren that I don't even have yet. But in that 6-3 vote, along ideological lines, with Justice Samuel Alito writing the decision for the conservative majority. They voted to uphold those voting restrictions. And at issue in the case were two Arizona laws. One banned the collection of absentee ballots by anybody other than a relative or caregiver. So in other words, like when we do souls to the polls, our church, we may go by some of the elderly members' homes who are not going to come to the polls, and or if they come to church and aren't going to go down to the polls, we will collect their absentee ballots and deliver them for them. Their law says only a relative or a caretaker can collect the absentee ballot. It's like, why? How ridiculous is that? And then the other basically threw out any ballots that were cast in the wrong precinct. If you cast a ballot in the wrong precinct, if you go in the wrong precinct, you can cast a provisional ballot, and your vote will still count. They're basically saying no. If you get mixed up, you moved to this place and you go to that precinct, but you're still registered under your old address and you had the wrong precinct. No, we're not. You got to go back across town or wherever you got to go. Otherwise, we're not going to count your ballot. A federal appeals court had struck down both of those provisions, saying they had an unequal impact on black voters and that there was no evidence of fraud that justified these laws. But the Supreme Court reinstated the laws and said that the unequal impact on black voters in the context was minor. So we're going to uphold them. That's the ideology of this Supreme Court. And this is rooted in a history of Supreme Court actions of legislatures across the nation in suppressing black votes. And what we're witnessing is a massive and unabashed assault on voting rights, unlike anything that we've seen since the Jim Crow era. I mean, this is Jim Crow in new clothes. That's what my brother Raphael Warnock said. It's Jim Crow in new clothes. Okay, much of this legislative blitz that follows Joe Biden's victory. I told you they're salty about the way you guys flipped those states and came out and voted and got Donald Trump out of office. So these legislative moves disproportionately target black people in particular and non-white voters, because of the critical role you played in winning both the White House and the U.S. Senate. This current assault on participatory democracy is consistent with U.S. history, and that's why, when people are having all these conversations about critical race theory, we don't want critical race theory taught in our schools. First of all, it's not even taught in K through 12. It's taught in higher education, mostly at the graduate level. But critical race theory was actually born out of critical legal theory. And basically, critical legal theory studied the impact of racism on American legal policies. That you could not do an analysis on American public policy without looking at how racism played a part in the legal realm. Case in point, you couldn't say white folks vote at a higher rate than black people if you didn't look at the fact that there were laws in place that prevented black people from voting. You know, and so critical race theory was born out of critical legal theory. And now here we go right back to promulgating laws that are racially biased. And then yelling and screaming about, let's not talk about racism in our schools. No, how about let's not practice racism in the public sphere? How about that? You know, instead of worrying about let's not teach racism, how about y'all not practice it? You know, maybe that's what we ought to be doing right now. It's not practicing racism. Okay. This is a long history. Political machinations that are intended to ensure power for white men and keep it at a distance for everybody else, most especially black people. That's the deal, y'all. That's the reality. And when you look at the timetable, you had the Reconstruction era between 1863 and 1877. What happened during that time, during Reconstruction, there were tremendous gains for black Americans. And that started the suppression efforts. Because what you had during that time period, you had the passing of the 13th, the 14th, the 15th amendments to the Constitution, the abolishment of slavery and everywhere but the prison industrial complex. But it was also a turbulent period. It was shaped by political violence that was really aimed at reestablishing white authority. At the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and massive lynchings across the nation because they wanted the nation to know that white men were still in charge. And they weren't going to have any leveling of the playing field. Just wasn't going to happen. You had a whole host of black people who were elected to public office during the Reconstruction period. And that's the reason why many times, you know, we say this was the first black so-and-so since Reconstruction. The reason we say that is because the Reconstruction period that saw the rise in black elected officials is what caused white backlash. And I often say, anytime there's black progress, there's always white backlash. Always white backlash. The election of Donald Trump was literally white backlash for America having the unmitigated audacity to elect a black man as president for 2 terms. I mean, it's bad enough y'all elected Barack Hussein Obama, as they're fond of saying. But then y'all turned around and y'all re-elected him. And the election of Donald Trump was direct white backlash against black progress. I see you, Annie Beard. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Zaida Govan. Good morning. If you're looking for somebody to vote for Ward 8 in Springfield, Massachusetts, I'm going back to my hometown. Ward 8 City Council, Zaida Govan. That's the person you need to vote for. Or that's who I'm voting for. Put it like that. And she will be my ward counselor. Because I live in Ward 8. Good morning, Alton Davis. How you be? Marvin Anderson, I see you. Good morning to each and every one of you. Michael Hinton, good morning, good morning, good morning. So the Reconstruction era brought about that level of backlash. Then you had the reign of Jim Crow, right? Around the turn of the 20th century, Southern lawmakers, they were keenly aware of the fact that they couldn't explicitly disenfranchise black voters. So they began polls a mix of registration requirements, poll taxes, literacy tests, understanding clauses, all kinds of things that were basically designed to underpin a new racial regime. You know, they'd have black folk come in to vote, and if they couldn't guess how many jelly beans or marbles were in the jar, they couldn't vote. These were the kind of suppression tactics that they were using during the Jim Crow era. Now we got Jim Crow 2.0 because they're not even shy about what they're doing. They ain't even shy about it. I mean, they have the audacity to say it's not what they're doing, but we know what they're doing, and they know that we know what they're doing, and they really don't care. They really don't care. And so what happened in 2013, when, once again, as I stated earlier, 35 Republican attorneys generals, and that's the reason why, let me pause parenthetically right there and tell you, that's the reason why y'all need to pay attention to the elections in your home districts and not just pay attention to national presidential elections. Because what gutted the Supreme Court, what caused the Supreme Court to gut the 1965 Voting Rights Act was a lawsuit that was filed by attorney generals from 35 states, Republican attorney generals. Attorney general is a statewide office selected in your state election. Here in Massachusetts, we vote in the even-numbered years. Every even-numbered years, we vote for our statewide offices. Your state treasurer, your attorney general, you know, those types of offices. And it's important, your district attorneys, it's important that you participate in those elections because they have far-reaching influence on laws and rules and policies that affect your day-to-day living. And so 35 statewide elected Republican attorney generals is what filed the lawsuit that caused the Supreme Court to gut the Voting Rights Act. You know, that was the Shelby County Act. And following that decision in 2013, in Shelby County versus Holder, it was in Tennessee, filed. Eric Holder was the Attorney General for the United States at the time under the Obama administration. After that decision, states across the nation run by Republicans began to unleash a wave of election changes to take advantage of the court's erosion of the protections that were granted under the Voting Rights Act that could no longer be enforced. And those changes are continuing to this day. To this day. You see, when it comes to voter suppression, let me tell you what the major difference is between Reconstruction and Jim Crow voter suppression and today's voter suppression. Because there's no difference between the goals of the post-Reconstruction suppression efforts and today's suppression efforts. But there is, it's my nosy sister, I told y'all I'm on vacation. But there is a difference between, now she coming in here telling me to be quiet on my radio, so get out of here, Frida. But there is a major difference between, there's a slight difference in some of the activity. The only difference in the activity is you don't have the night rides of the Ku Klux Klan. That's it. You got the night rides. They ain't riding horses, you know, dragging black people out their house and burning crosses on their lawns. The Klan is still very active, though. They're just not doing those overt acts that they know that the courts back then weren't going to hold them accountable for. That's the only difference between the Reconstruction Ku Klux Klan-led voter suppression efforts and today's Republicans. That's the only difference. They have common endeavors. And their common endeavor then and now is to make it harder for black people to vote. Make it harder for black people to vote. That's it. Make it harder for us to vote. The targets of the Klan were communities that posed some serious political threats. So they concentrated on formerly enslaved black men, black elected officials, their supporters. Today's Republicans that are still very much influenced by the son of a Klansman that used to be president and got impeached twice. All right. They're targeting communities that are home mainly to black people. Georgia. Okay? That's why that's why they tripping on Georgia. They're tripping on Atlanta and Philadelphia and Milwaukee and Detroit. You know, these major metropolitan centers that are predominantly black. They are focusing on them. You know, so you have this turn of the century wave of voter suppression, and you have the modern contemporary voter suppression. But there's a common thread. There's a common thread if you follow history. The Klan's calling card was violence that was rendered in the dark of the night by men wearing white hoods and robes. The primary weapon they used was fear. All right? There was no act of terror that went too far. Cross burnings, kidnapping, murder, lynching, anything to keep black folk in check. Keep black folk intimidated. Keep them from even going to the polls. If you even try to go to register to vote, this is what's going to happen to you. That was the message that they were sending. Scare the hell out of black folk. You know, that's what that was. Today, in order to restore and maintain, not restore, to maintain white supremacy and its power over black voters, they use gerrymandering. They use election intimidation. They use unfair ballot laws. This is what they're doing. That's the replacement for what the Klan did when they would just scare the hell out of black folk. And so the Klan's slight decline gave rise to the Jim Crow era, to the Jim Crow laws throughout the South that officially authorized racism in places of public accommodation, placed race-laden roadblocks across paths to the voting booth. It birthed the poll tax, the literacy test that I talked about, the grandfather clause. Y'all know where we get grandfather clause? You don't even know. Sometimes y'all say, well, will I get grandfather? You know, the grandfather clause basically is a racist term. Basically, the grandfather clause allowed white men who failed literacy tests to vote if their grandfathers had voted by a certain time. Now, black folk who failed literacy tests just couldn't vote at all. Because, of course, you know their granddaddy didn't vote because their grandfathers were slaves. I mean, that wouldn't even work today. Like, let's say my father failed, who's very much alive, say he failed a literacy test. And the standard was, well, if your granddaddy voted, you could vote. Well, guess what? My father's grandfather was a slave. For people who think that slavery is so far back, so long ago, there are people that are alive today who knew slaves. who knew slaves, whose relatives were slaves. My father and his siblings are grandchildren of slaves. So he wouldn't be able to be grandfather. But white folks, if your granddaddy voted, you could vote. That's where grandfather clause basically comes from. It was a Jim Crow rule. And the voter suppression tactics of 2021, it might not involve the Ku Klux Klan night rides, but they're equally focused on controlling election day outcomes that favor folks who hate black people and who want to maintain white supremacy and its power over non-white people. And so what we witnessed today is purges of voter rolls in black communities, onerous voter ID and witness signature laws, changes to the terms and requirements of voter registration, limitations on polling places, curtailed early voting, getting rid of Sunday voting, the disenfranchisement of people with felony convictions, even after other voters have affirmed their right to vote. These attacks on voting are strictly put in place to maintain white supremacy. That's the bottom line, brothers and sisters. 6 minutes left here on WTCC. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. I see my cousin Vita Swan in the building. I see my brother John Swan in the building, even though he's here on the island with me somewhere in another house. John, you treating the breakfast at Biscuits after this, right? Right. He's treating the breakfast after Biscuits. If y'all want John Swan to treat me to breakfast at Biscuits, type in the comments, John pay for breakfast. Okay? I need some help, y'all. I need y'all to type in the comments, John pay for breakfast. 413-337-1867. Cousin Vita in Milwaukee. That's one of those cities that they're trying to suppress votes because y'all flipped Wisconsin. Somebody type in there, John pay for breakfast. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Paul. How are you?
I'm good. You?
All right. This is Pastor David.
Yes, sir.
I was listening to you and I was wondering, so what can be done to stop this?
Well, first of all, we have to vote. And see, if we vote, we can keep some of these racists out of office that are promulgating and passing these laws. Then we have to be actively engaged with those organizations that are filing the lawsuits and need the resources and support of our people to fight these things, like the NAACP, like the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and various organizations that are literally leading a legal challenge to these racist laws. And so, as a president of a branch of the NAACP, I love my people, but my people don't support us. That's just real. I mean, it's real. We ask for a $30 yearly membership and to get involved at a certain level. And our people come to us a lot seeking help, and they get mad. I called the NAACP, they didn't come to court with me. Well, we work. We're all volunteers. We can't go to court with you. We can't pay for you a lawyer. Y'all won't even pay $30 to the branch to give it financial support, but y'all think we're going to pay for you a lawyer? Sometimes our people are unreasonable. So we have to support those organizations, support your local churches, support these grassroots organizations like Arise and like Pioneer Valley Project and others that are on the front lines fighting the fight. That would be the starting point. I give people advice in terms of how to fight this.
Okay. Well, I sure appreciate that. I'm sitting behind you because
Yeah. And I'm tired of some Democrats too.
Yeah, I'm too.
Yes, sir.
Especially that guy that's working with the Democrats,
Yeah. Joe Manchin. That's what I asked earlier. Who's running the country? Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
Yeah, he's just he's gonna keep on these Democrats.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, he needs to go.
All right. Appreciate your call.
All right, yes, sir.
3 minutes left on WTCC. 413-337-1867. If you're looking for a place to worship, check us out at the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ. We're located at 35 Alden Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. We worship every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. We stream live as well. Would love to have you as part of our worship experience, either in the sanctuary or online, whichever works for you. You are definitely invited, okay? You're invited. I'm going to move from the radio, and then what we will do, we'll continue for a few minutes, not a whole lot, because I'm on vacation, y'all. So, you know, that normal 90 to 120 minutes I give y'all on Monday, y'all ain't getting that today, okay? I decided I was going to go ahead and broadcast the radio show today, but you're not going to get all the time that you normally get to my streaming audience. So stick with me for a few more minutes. Those of you who are listening on WTCC, always a pleasure being with you. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Streaming audience, we'll see you right back. Call or hold until after the break. Overdrive, y'all, on the spoken word for a few more moments. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning, caller.
How you doing, Pastor Swan?
I'm good.
Okay, I just have a comment, maybe not too popular.
Okay.
America just celebrated the 4th of July here.
Uh-huh.
And as you stated, you can give our elders a bottle of water to vote. As long as we black people feel that we're free to even participate in the 4th of July, which comes at the beginning of the month, when all our bills and things start to come up by the vote. And we have young people here, small countries, in the morning. How do we get them to focus on the subject that you're talking about as to being a nuisance in our neighborhoods?
Well, you know, you make a poignant observation. I wonder myself when it's every 4th of July, I post and play Frederick Douglass. What to the slave is the 4th of July? Because we weren't free. That's not the anniversary of our freedom. And I always wonder why black folk, brown folk, anybody who's non-white would be out there celebrating, spending their checks on buying fireworks and busting off fireworks and all that kind of stuff. And celebrating. I say, you know what? If it's a day off, go and take the day off. Relax. Go exercise. Go spend some time with your family or whatever. But it's not a celebration for us. And there are a number of other holidays. I don't celebrate President's Day. I don't celebrate Columbus Day. He was a genocidal maniac, a murderer. A number of things I don't observe or celebrate that America does. And that comes from a lack of understanding and knowledge of history. And that's why it's always important that we teach our history in our home, among our children and grandchildren, that we debunk and deprogram them from everything that they learn in these schools. Like right now, you got this big push. Don't teach about racism in the schools. But they've been teaching us lies in the schools ever since there have been schools. They taught my grandparents lies. They taught my parents lies. They taught me lies. They taught my children lies. And now they're teaching my grandchildren lies. And so we've got to deprogram all of that stuff in our homes so that we have a better understanding of where we should be and how we should respond as black people.
Well, I'm glad that I don't feel alone in my thoughts like that because, like I said, it's misery come the 10th and everything after that when things have to be paid out.
Yeah.
And then about ribs and liquor and beer and whatever else. And
right.
I'm sad, bro.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your call, brother.
If they could focus more on, us working and getting ourselves together and putting all the energy into that and be in misery.
Yes, sir.
We might be a few more yards down the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I thank you for taking my call, bro. And I feel reaffirmed that, it wasn't just me feeling like that.
Absolutely not. All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Bye.
Peace. All right, y'all. I'm getting ready to roll out of here. I'm going to give maybe 5 minutes to see if I get a couple more calls in. I don't get them calls. I'm rolling up out of here. Black Liberation for Change. Oh, I see you, Charles Stokes. 413-337-1867. Let me get some of y'all comments up here before I get on out of here. I need a few more of y'all to tell John to pay for the breakfast. John, are you still watching? Because people are on here telling you that you need to pay for a brother's breakfast. Lydia says to pay for the breakfast. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Betty says to pay for the breakfast. Charles says to pay for the breakfast. Look at that. John, you're going to have to pay for it. Look, blessed and highly favored. Now, when blessed and highly favored says you should pay for the breakfast, bruh. Man, you ought to pay for everybody's breakfast. Matter of fact, y'all remix y'all stuff and say, John, pay for everybody's breakfast. Look at that, John. Zyda says to pay for the breakfast. Pay for the breakfast, John. Breakfast on you, bruh. Big money. Y'all know I'm gonna go seek them out after this. Go seek him out after this. Pay for the breakfast, John. Yes. Yes. All right, listen. Wanted to get with you all today, even though I'm on vacay. They always say that you're in the right field of endeavor when it's something that you would do anyway. All right, whether it was your position or not, whether you got paid or not, whatever the case may be, if you would do it anyway, you know you're in the right area. And I don't consider this work, which is the reason why, you know, I'm still doing it on vacation. I enjoy this, being able to interact with my people, to bring you information, to share with you, to interact with you. It's been a wonderful 21-year ride since we first got into radio back in the year 2000. And so I enjoyed it. So, you know, even on vacation, if I can get it done, I'm going to get it done. But right now, I'm going to enjoy some vacating. Okay. So in any case, appreciate you all so much for sticking with me. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you. So do I. Peace.